Hi, everybody. Before we dive into this week's podcast, I wanted to take the time to recognize our Wig Out sponsors, whose contributions help provide free and accessible art education programs such as this podcast. Thank you to Raleigh Credit Union for their generous support. Now, here's the show. So, without further ado, today with me in the studio, I have artist and professor Scott Nichol. Scott has traveled all around the world, makes large-scale installation pieces, and is an art activist raising awareness to the environmental and human impacts of federal enforcement along the U.S.-Mexico border. So to start off, could you maybe tell us a little bit about your journey to your current career and places you've had the opportunities to travel to?
So professionally, I went to Austin College in Sherman, Texas for my BFA. And that kind of liberal arts experience was really enriching in that it didn't see art as being a really narrowly focused sort of thing. Right? It wasn't a situation where you are specifically, a painter or a ceramicist or whatever. The idea was that in art, you'd be very experimental and very sort of broad-based, or same kind of thing in academics and in life, right? So you should be exploring, pulling in more things, seeing more things. And then after that, I bounced around for a little bit, lived in Denver for a while and ran around in the mountains, and then went to grad school at UT San Antonio, finished up there in 1999. And while I was there, I was doing both sculptural work and more two-dimensional stuff. So large scale, kind of abstract drawings with concept on watercolor paper, and at the same time doing large installations using river stones that naturally have holes occurring in them. So you have mass of, maybe 300, 400 pounds worth of stones hanging from the ceiling or hanging from a tree. And that was, in both cases, sort of my way of trying to make work that interacted with a more natural world. So the white box of the gallery or museum just didn't really work for me in the way I was thinking. And so I was trying to, again, be sort of more broad-based, to bring that in. And I did a summer where I ran around in Utah and camped out and tied rocks to things and threw paper down on a sheet of plywood and moved big works. And so I was trying to find different ways of being an artist. I really just had a real hard time connecting with the traditional, you rate stock, frame it up for a gallery. And so then eventually I was teaching summers in Costa Rica and Nicaragua, biological field stations there. So all the other students are looking at monkeys and, learning about herpetology in the rainforest environment. And my students were tying stuff to stuff and making installations inside specific work. And eventually I ended up at South Texas College in Nicol. So that's where I am now for the last 19 years, primarily teaching drawing. I guess that as a professional journey, it's pretty roundabout and meandering, but that's just, I guess, the role.
But it seems like you've stayed in this realm of art throughout your career, right? Like in positions. Can you pinpoint or point to whenever you realized you were going to be an artist or wanted to be an artist?
I think I always wanted to be an artist. I didn't always have a real clear idea of what that meant in the real world, especially when it comes to making a living out of it. Once I got to undergrad, I got to know some of my professors. I thought these are really cool people and they have cool lives, and it's a great way to stay connected and force one to think about art all the time. And so that was about when I decided that I wanted to teach. It took me a while to actually land a teaching position, but that was kind of the goal from that point on. I wanted to teach at a college level. I really wanted to be both experimental in my own work, but also forced to be thinking about and interacting with fine art all the time. I hadn't had a lot of totally non-art not very exciting, boring jobs. And, then it becomes a little bit more of a struggle to stay on that, to kind of keep your mind there instead of on the data entry that you have to do for 8 hours a day. And so I've always wanted to teach. I really enjoy it for that reason.
Did you know that you always wanted to teach at a college level, or is that kinda something you learned as you taught various groups?
I always wanted college level because I think that's the point where students are much more focused, or the art majors really, really want to be there. They really are, for the most part, excited about, learning new things and focusing in on the arts. And, I think that you also end up with colleagues that are really, really brilliant in their own fields, whatever it is that they teach, if they're passionate enough about to devote their lives to teaching. So I think it's a fantastic environment.
How did you get the opportunity to do all this travel in your career? Like, are they through residencies or all a little bit different? Could you, like, talk a little bit more about your travel experiences?
Sure. So part of it is just like seeking that out and prioritizing it. I mean, for me, travel is a big priority. So when I was teaching from 2000 through 2005, every summer I would either go to Costa Rica and Nicaragua to teach at the La Suerte Biological Field Station or the Ometepe Biological Field Station. And I mean, at that point, I didn't have a full-time teaching job, so I would just take 10 jobs 10 months out of the year and then quit and then go teach for a month and then come back and get another temp job. And it was just because that was my priority. That was what I built my year around. And it, because I didn't have other resources to really work with. So residencies were tougher to come by. And honestly, that for me was like the best residency. I mean, being able to run around in the rainforest for months, I can't imagine a residency as good as that. So, that was what I wanted to do. And I just made it a priority. And I still kind of do it. That's one of the one of the very nice things about teaching at college level is I have the summer off. So I'll go, run around in Utah or in the mountains somewhere, for a month or two every summer. Well, it's, that makes it just about impossible to stop teaching. Because really, I cannot imagine losing that.
Right, being in nature and kind of being able to have that freedom, that flexibility that that career offers.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think I enjoy the teaching part too a lot. I really do. But yeah, that ability to just really recharge and, have a big block of time to make art and a big block of time to run around and more explore the natural world, and explore different parts of the natural world. Like that's critical.
I was about to say, like, during the school year while you're teaching your students, is it hard to find time for your own practice?
It's harder in the summer for sure. I mean, I still have probably more time than I would in a regular 9 to 5 job. And I definitely in like mentoring students and helping them figure out what they want to do with their art, at the same time, I'm kind of thinking what I would do in their situation, trying to address whatever issues or aesthetics they're trying to address. And so that gets me thinking about my own stuff. And so I ended up getting a lot more done even during the school year than I was getting done prior when I was ready to non-art related jobs. But then I have the summer, and the summer is just, it's cool.
To students or emerging artists who wanna travel and do art, either teaching workshops or finding those maybe non-art residency opportunities, what advice would you give to them on where to even start looking for any kind of thing like that?
That's tough. I mean, I would look just anywhere and everywhere. And I think one thing that I found that doesn't work with my normal natural mindset is just how critical networking is and getting to know people. And I think that, I had always sort of thought of getting to know people and other artists as critical basic social stuff and for getting feedback on art and, that sort of thing. But it's also really important for finding out about opportunities. And so, a lot of the shows that I've been in, a lot of the opportunities that I've had have been, knowing somebody says, "Hey, here's a thing. You seem like you would be interested." Um, and so that's the biggest thing I think. Get a big network and then use that or find other opportunities.
I feel like that's something maybe students struggle with, like, well, how do I do that? Like,
Mhm.
when I tell my high schoolers or even college graduates, recent college grads, it's like, "Oh, yeah, like, networking. The art world is very small. It's pays off to go to things, to do things."
Another one.
But for students who don't know where to start on that, what would your advice be to them on that as far as, like, advice on networking, how to do it, what to do, or tips that you've learned? Because I find a lot of these students are also very shy.
I think that's something that has really hit since COVID. Like when everybody was sort of locked in their own little room in their own little space, and all of their social connections were being made online instead of in person. I think it's much more difficult for a lot of people to break free of that. I'm pretty naturally introverted, which works great when I'm out in the middle of nowhere in a tent for a long period of time. But yeah, networking is not something that I'm me either. But they should totally do it. You go to every single art event that comes up, every single opening, every single everything, and then talk to people. On even people that they may not be super interested in initially. Like, that way you just talk to everybody. That's the best thing to do. And especially since so many people that they might, think of themselves as being in competition with don't do that because social changes, then they have an advantage. If there are fewer people that are getting that benefit.
At, the college that you teach at, what would you say is, like, the number one thing students struggle with after they graduate as far as staying in the arts or, like, a matter of skills that you wish you, like, had more time to kinda teach them, prepare them for maybe?
I think, one misconception that a lot of students have, or is, and for probably all disciplines, is the idea that as soon as you graduate, there's just a job waiting for you. You step off the stage and somebody's going to hand you a job offer. And in the same way that networking is critical, it's like they have to really, really work. I mean, it took me years to find a full-time teaching, many years. And looking back, if I had done, I could have been a whole lot better at finding a teaching opportunity. So there's just being to hustle and find the opportunities, apply for stuff that may not be something they most want to do, but that sets them up for that. Or things like substitute. If they want to teach, they should do substitute teaching. I can't imagine substitute teaching probably is no fun at all because you get thrown down into a classroom full of students that don't know you and you can't really do anything to them if they act up. But if you do that, that looks better on your resume and you start to make more connections. Just things like that. They just need to really, really work it and not expect something to be handed to them.
So, I wanna talk a little bit more about your art practice. You have a show up in the gallery right now, but that's more what we were talking about earlier, kind of like it's work, it goes into a gallery, it can be sold and stuff like that. But then you also have work that you were talking about that you do like outside in nature, putting things together. Do you ever, as an artist, struggle with that balance between like I have to make the art that can make me money or can that I can sell, and also this practice of like this art is meant to not sell and that's okay?
So I really don't think about sales. Like it's just not, it really doesn't cross my mind. And so I bounce back and forth between making two-dimensional stuff or making three-dimensional stuff. And it's because they each have something to give me or they each do something. Two-dimensional stuff has got a huge advantage in that I can work a lot faster. Like I can go, make a piece, make a piece, make a piece, make a piece. And so I can make more progress as I go that way. Like each one sort of builds, there's this evolution over time. And the sculptural works and the installations and site specific works, those And so I think they're really fun to do, but they just take so long. And so the evolution for that is a lot slower. And, but then, the installation and sculpture works have much more of a presence. Like they're a real thing, like physically, literally a thing. And I like working with those materials. I like kind of manhandling materials, and it's the experience of making them is really great for me. And the experience of then interacting with them after, yeah, it's just really great, especially site specific stuff. They're super fun because now I really get to know the place that they were made in. But the drawings just cool. The drawings have their own presence too, and that's why I end up making really large drawings a lot of times. Is because I kind of want to have something that has something. It's a little bit more of the presence, for sure. Well, the drawings and the sculptures are pretty much on the same scale. What feels natural for me for a drawing is going to be 6 feet, 8 feet, and that's about the same as for a sculpture. Well, it's just like this is the scale that I can interact with, and it has enough presence to really make me want to interact with it. I have a little harder time, getting up close on something small.
Yeah, that's a comment we get in the gallery quite often recently when people come and see the exhibit is that they're like, "Oh my gosh, these are so much bigger than I thought that they were."
Yeah, then you see them in a postcard or on a screen. Yeah,
Yeah, and then people are expecting, like, a normal, like, 12 by 18 or something like
what
that,
works?
and then they come in and they're like, "Oh my gosh, these are huge." But yeah, I agree. I think it has a totally different presence in the gallery when you work on that scale
Mhm.
versus filling up the gallery with a lot of smaller pieces or variety of work. When you work on your large scale works, do you typically work with a team of people, or is it mostly
No,
just you?
it's always just me. I only ever had a team with me behind that, and I think that's in some ways that's a limiting factor. Theoretically, if I had a giant studio and all kinds of equipment and a whole crew or whatever, I can make massive stuff. Like, I mean, I really kind of enjoy working on it. Even though they seem big, once they get out of the studio, they feel more intimate. Like the working process is more intimate. I'm having to figure out what I can do. And so, yeah, and I think that's sort of led into the use of beeswax in the sculptures. Like in some of them, they'll have big sort of sail type features, or fabric coated in beeswax. And so that can be a really large feature. It feels kind of fleshy and it's deep across space, but they don't actually weigh that much. And so we end up being very delicate and not surviving forever. One thing is the drawings at least survive, but the sculptures a little more trouble with that. But that kind of allows me to really work with them and pick them up and get a feel for their weight and their balance and not have to rely on others to do that. I don't think I'd be very good at that.
So you talked about when you were in school, your experience was where you were kind of taught to explore different types of art, different
Mhm.
forms. You didn't specialize necessarily in a specific field. At South Texas College, when students take art classes, are they kind of guided into a specific medium, or is it more of a broad program?
It's a little bit more narrowly focused because it's a 2-year degree. And so like when they're working on the associates, it's like, here's the things we need you to know as a basis. And then when they go on to a bachelor's, hopefully, and then even better, a master's degree, then they can really broaden and do a lot more experimental work. The drawing 1 and drawing 2 classes that I teach are basically just here's the Renaissance and you to learn how to do the Renaissance. It's how to use materials. It's realistic because that's a way to really learn how to use materials. If you can use materials for that, you can use them for anything.
Right, more like, "Here are the tools for you to later learn how to develop your art practice, but here's the tools for your toolkit," kinda thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, if you don't know how to use a drill, you're not going to be able to use a drill and you need to.
Right. So, if you had any advice to give to your students looking out for a college program or for even a grad program, what would you give to them on what are things that you should look for? What are things that you should maybe prioritize that you might not be thinking about right now?
Mhm. Well, I think, for either of those, what is the faculty like? I think there's not a real understanding of the variability of faculty from one program to another. So I think they should really look and see, or what are their faculty that they're going to be spending their time with like? Because some faculty will try to direct them to do a certain thing. There are some people who teach who kind of they want to make little mini versions of themselves that graduate out there, and they should look. I mean, that's probably good for really learning how to do a specific thing really well. If that specific thing happens to do what they want to do, then great. But they they should just be experimental all the way through, and that should be like or a lifelong thing. But that's just me. But I think they also should look at what are the facilities, because I think there's a lot of variability on what a school can teach. Based on funds. Well, some schools have certain equipment and some others don't. And it's what is their funding structure like, and can they afford to offer certain things? So, I think the the big thing, I think the big misconception that some students have is just that it's all sort of the same. You go to one college or another college, another college, we're all basically the same. It's just this kind of standardized thing, and it's just not. And so they really need to do their homework and figure out like what is going to be the best for me or for them.
Well, that's great. To finish off this interview and conversation, is there any advice in general that you would like to give to emerging artists, students, young adults, just general advice about pursuing a career in the arts, whether that's teaching, being a full-time artist, anything like that?
I think the big thing is they should make a ton of art. I mean, that's one thing that I see a fair number of students not do is they'll sit down, they'll make some stuff, and we'll do our sketchbook. You just got to make a ton of art, ton of art. And, the only way that any evolution occurs is through like doing it again and again and again and again and again. So they should, the best artists that I have seen are the most obsessive ones. And so it's like, you get somewhere. I look back at the stuff that I was making 5, 10, 15 years ago, and it's completely different and I don't think not nearly as good as what I'm making today. And it's because there's that evolution. And so if you make less art, you evolve more slowly, if at all, instead of just making stuff. And then they should also be exploratory and not just say, I'm good at this. So I'm going to do this over and over again. Like whatever it is that they're good at, fine, do something else also. When you might build upon that. And again, it's like if you just keep repeating yourself, you don't evolve.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, your advice, your experiences, and then we'll see you again when your show comes down. The next opening will be April 4th during Art Walk from 6 to 10 p.m.
Great. Thanks. Good talking to you.
This podcast is part of the Case-Based Contemporary Art Education Programming. Case-Based Contemporary is a 501c3 nonprofit organization committed to presenting and promoting contemporary art. As a dynamic forum for creative exchange and experimentation, we strive to educate and raise awareness for innovative art in South Texas. To support this podcast, please share, like, and subscribe on your favorite streaming platforms. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Case-Based Contemporary, or check out our education page on Instagram at Case-Based Art Lab. For those interested in contributing or becoming a member of Case-Based Contemporary, please visit our website at www.casebasedcontemporary.org.